Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the 74th running of the Pau Grand Prix here in the Pyrenees in France. It also is representing round 9 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The cars are on the grid and in a few minutes time we'll be underway with our third race of the weekend here. And as you can see from the grid there, it is the British driver for the reigning champion team, Prema Power Team, who come from Italy. That is on pole position, and he's on pole position, Jake Dennis, for the third time this weekend, having never had a pole position in Formula 3 before. The championship leader, though, is alongside him on the front row of the grid, Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian, for the Giovinazzi I Am with Carlin team, one of the newer teams in that form at least. Carlin have been around for a long time. This partnership with Giovinazzi I Am only formed last year, and that is the front row of the grid. And we've got Maximilian Gunther, who's getting very, very close to getting on the podium in recent races, but hasn't quite managed to do it yet. Will be third on the grid. And Charles Leclerc, who's been the best qualifier so far this year, is fourth on the grid. And when I tell you that fourth on the grid is one of his worst starting positions of the season so far, that tells you just how well it's gone for the rookie, the Monegasque, who is there as one of the front runners in the championship. We've had 5 different winners from the races so far this season, and that man is looking for a hat-trick. He's looking to become the first driver this season to win 3 races, having taken both victories yesterday, lights to flag victory in both of the races here, despite various race interruptions with safety cars and even with a red flag in the second race yesterday. He had to keep his head very much so, but he was the quickest driver yesterday. And Jake Dennis also got the new Formula 3 track record here, a 10th quicker than Esteban Ocon managed in the 2014 race. There is the championship leader, Antonio Giovinazzi, who has not been off the podium so far this season. 8 starts, 8 podium finishes, including a win at Hockenheim. He's the points leader, but only by 5 points from Charles Leclerc, the rookie who comes from Monaco, who we'll see shortly on the second row of the grid. That is the desperately unlucky Maximilian Gunther, who had a great start to the second race yesterday, got himself into second position and was able to fend off for much of the race the very close attentions of Charles Leclerc and Antonio Giovinazzi. But his undoing, really, the German, was the various interruptions from the safety car, which bunched them all back up to him and gave them a chance of a run past him on the restarts. And that's what happened towards the end of the race, about 5 minutes to go, having been second all the way through. Charles Leclerc got past him with a very, very good move. And then shortly after that, Giovinazzi, with an aggressive, but I think probably just about fair move, got past him as well. It was debatable whether there was any contact between them. If there was, it was light. It's quite hard to tell from the angle. Either way, the German ran wide, ran off the road and didn't finish the race. And the round before at Hockenheim, he'd been third, looking for a podium, when he'd had a spin on the last lap of the final race in Germany in the wet conditions. So he's got desperately close to a podium, but it hasn't come yet. There is Charles Leclerc, best qualifier of the season so far. His average grid this year is 2.5, so he's nearly always on or just behind the front row of the grid. He is a rookie, he's leading the rookie standings, but this, as I say, is his worst grid of the weekend so far, 4th spot. It's also worth bearing in mind that both Jake Dennis and Antonio Giovinazzi have good tyres. You're limited to the number of tyres you can use in a race weekend, and Leclerc reckons he hasn't got good tyres for this one. So we'll see. Jake Dennis has got 2 good tyres, only a couple of laps use, and Giovinazzi's got a set of spanking new ones, we believe. Marcus Pommer had bad luck in the first qualifying session with the broken wishbones. Had to start race 1 at the back and couldn't really progress around this very tight street circuit. Had a better grid yesterday, but had a bad start to the race, so although he was in the points, he did drop a few positions. But Marcus Pommer, who's got lots of experience in Formula 3, particularly in German Formula 3, which he was the champion last year, might be one to watch in this race. There is another rookie on the rookie podium yesterday, Alexander Albon, who made a name for himself in the last couple of years in Formula Renault, third in Formula Renault last season in the Euro Cup, took his maiden win in 2014, and he's had an excellent start to the season, to his inaugural campaign. He is born in London, lives in the UK, but Thai national. His dad, Nigel Albon, was a front-running Porsche Carrera Cup racer and raced in the British Touring Car Championship as well. Back in the day, against the likes of Gabriele Tarquini and Ricard Rydell, Alain Menu. So it's in the blood. There is one of the newcomers, like Max Verstappen last year, who went straight from karts into Formula 3. This is Alessio Lorandi, who's done exactly the same. Lorandi from Italy, racing for the same team that Max Verstappen did, for Van Amersfoort Racing. He's the teammate to Charles Leclerc. The Van Amersfoort drivers, all 3 of them, have been going very well here this weekend. Leclerc has gone well in all rounds so far. That is why he's up there in second place in the championship. But the two young guns in the team have also made good progress this weekend. Lorandi has looked much quicker, and this young man had an excellent drive yesterday. Arjun Maini, the Indian driver, finished in 4th place in the second race. He'd not been in the points in any of the rounds so far, but something's clicked this weekend, and he really has looked good, and 4th place, and fending off the very experienced Felix Rosenqvist towards the end of the race, and even pulling away from Felix, who's, if you include his other Formula 3 campaigns before he got to European Formula 3, Felix is the most experienced driver, and in the European campaign he's had more than 90 races now, and young Alex was able to fend him off. There is Lance Stroll, who with Prema Power Team, he's one of the teammates to Jake Dennis on pole position. With Prema Power Team, the Canadian driver in his first season of cars won the Italian Formula 4 Championship last year, so we'll no doubt be looking forward to our next trip, which is in 2 weeks' time, to Monza. So the Canadian looking pretty good here. He's picked up quite a few points so far this season. He'll be starting 9th on the grid. Italian driver Michele Beretta will round out the top 10, and the grid is now being cleared. So we're here at this historic race, and we've got one starting from the pit lane by the looks of things. Looks like Raoul Hyman, I think. It's the South African driver for Team Westech, so it looks like he's going to start from the pit lane. We're minus this weekend Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of the 1972-1974 Formula 1 world champion Emerson Fittipaldi, who also in his day won around the streets of Po, because unfortunately in a qualifying crash he broke his hand as he hit the barriers, the steering wheel whipped around and broke the underside of his hand. So Fittipaldi out for the weekend, possibly I suppose out for the next race, which is only in 2 weeks' time, to say, at Monza in Italy. So this very famous street circuit's a wonderful location, situated around the park, which is down in a valley beneath the town. You can watch from the town. There's all sorts of stalls here in the park itself, all sorts of things for the family and the kids to do. The race essentially runs around the outside of what is a very beautiful park, and in between the houses on the roads of Po. In between the station, the railway station here as well, which is used as the paddock. Part of the park is used as the paddock for the Formula 3 cars, and it's a very undulating circuit. That's the climb up to this left-hand turn here, where it gets very, very tight on the first lap. Pont Oscar, they go right under a bridge then. You can look over the bridge. It's absolutely fantastic to watch the cars whipping under this bridge just a few metres beneath you. As a reminder of the grid, 1 minute 10.276 was Jake Dennis's time for this one. It's each driver's second fastest lap time in the second qualifying session is what gave us the grid for this one. I'll run down the rest of the grid there for you. But an absolutely fabulous setting. The origins of this event can be traced as far back as 1901, when they had the Grand Prix de Sud-Ouest here in France. It was the ancestor to the Po Grand Prix, and it was the first ever race to be given the name Grand Prix in motor racing. Then this race itself was held in 1933 for the first time for Formula Libre cars. There was no race in 1934, and then in 1935 it came back with an alternate route, which is more or less the same course that they run these days. It was used as a non-championship race back in the day for Formula 1 cars. Juan Manuel Fangio winning in 1949. Then Formula 2 cars came here in the 60s, 70s and early 80s. Jim Clark was a double winner. Jochen Rindt was a 3-time winner. Jackie Stewart won in 1968. Graham Hill, Jack Brabham, Emerson Fittipaldi have all raced here as well. Formula 3000 came here in the 1980s. John Alesi took his maiden F3000 victory at this circuit. Juan Pablo Montoya won the race in 1997 and 1998. But in recent times, not every year, but in recent times, Formula 3 has been the headline act. We've had World Touring cars here as well. Lewis Hamilton won the race in 2005. And Romain Grosjean, who also races in Formula 1, of course, these days for Lotus, won both the races in 2006 when it was part of the British Formula 3 Championship. So the grid lining up. So there's some great names that have won this race. Can Jake Dennis add his name to that illustrious list of Po Grand Prix winners? It's the 74th running of the event. Hasn't run every year since that inaugural race back in 1933. World War II interrupted most motorsport around the world, of course, but most years since the end of World War II it has run, and it is a fabulous, fabulous event. You can get right by the circuit here if you're in the park, have a picnic, spend some time with the family, and then watch these cars race past at 280 kilometres an hour on this fabulous, fabulous street circuit. So it's going to be a 29-lap race, all 35 minutes, whichever comes first. Last year's winner, Felix Rosenqvist, is way down the grid after a poor qualifying session in which he could not get a clear lap. He's back in 11th place. It's going to be a tall order to win from there as the race gets underway. The 74th running of the Pau Grand Prix, and the pole sitter Jake Dennis sweeps across to secure pole position and to convert that into the race lead. Giovinazzi's had a couple of really good starts so far this weekend, but he can't get through. He's in second place. Max Gunther, he's under the close attentions and the close scrutiny of the Black Van Amersfoort car of Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc couldn't get through, which would be much to his frustration. Yellow flag's waving because you can't pass into the first few corners. They're not going to be passing anybody because there's been a big pile up there. Anyway, one of the cars involved in that is Brandon Mazzano. The French drivers go the wrong way down the track now to try and whip around. One of the Muka Motorsport cars is involved in that as well. That's Kang Ling, one of the Chinese drivers. Oh, there's been a huge pile up here. That, I'm afraid, is Tatiana Calderon, who's a regular point scorer in the second half of last year, but has had a really disappointing start to her campaign thus far. And this is coming out of Lagarde, the first corner. There was contact there. Mazzano got a third. I think it was from Martin Cow, was it? It was from number 31. No, Hong Cow, yeah. It's the British Formula 3 champion just tagging him, and that set off a chain reaction of events there. Safety car has been deployed. We've had a lot of safety cars this weekend. This is the earliest one so far, and oh dear, that Muka Motorsport car was riding right up over the back of the other car, taken off the rear wing, and a lot of drivers involved in that incident that weren't really anything to do with it, but were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that second incident, I think there were two separate incidents, happened on the run up towards that bridge at Pont Oscar. The car is stranded in the track. Looks like the drivers are out and okay. Here's another replay. You'll see the orange Muka Motorsport car launched into the air, getting a piggyback up the hill, smashing into the barriers. Ooh, and that was potentially a very nasty incident indeed. And luckily, it slipped back off the car, but Tatiana Calderon for about 50 metres or so there. And the Kang Ling car riding all over the back of her Carlin machine. And thankfully, it didn't go over her and over the cockpit. Coming into the pits then is number 31, Hong Cow, who was involved in that earlier incident on the exit to the first corner at Lagarde. And these marshals have been terrific this weekend, I have to say, who've been clearing the track in super quick time. Not sure this one will be quite so quick, there's a lot to do, but in the incidents we've had so far this weekend, they've been clearing the track, and we've only been having 1 or 2 laps behind the safety car before they sort it out. Lots of access gates to push the cars through. Team now busy trying to fix the car. That's Fortec Motorsport. Fortec have been multiple champions in Formula Renault, British Formula Renault, and good international record as well. One is the Macau Grand Prix as well. They were well versed in getting these cars back out on the road. So Hong Cow is back out, the Chinese driver, the number 31 machine, will join at the back of the field, potentially not having lost a lap as well. Absolutely fantastic circuit this, which, as you can see for yourself, is very narrow indeed, but very undulating. It's a steep climb out of the first turn at Lagarde, all the way up to Pont Oscar. A bit more of a climb then up to the first of 2 hairpins, which is taken down first gear. Really, really tight full lock hairpin at Lizy-Barthau. And then it gets really quick in the second half of the lap. Once they get up to Parc Beaumont, which is an immense corner, the last third of the lap is all run downhill, pretty steeply downhill as well. The pictures don't really tell the tale. Another replay there, bits of bodywork flying off everywhere. It's a real hazard, and that car just flung around, completely out of control. The Royal Hoop there doing a good protective job. Tatiana Calderon couldn't do anything about that. This car riding over the back of her. A real disappointment for the Colombian. As I say, it was a regular points finisher. There she is. Good to see she's okay. And that's Kang Ling, whose car rode over the back of her. A wry smile from Tatiana. Hopefully better days ahead for her. Just switched to one of the top teams, but it hasn't quite clicked this season so far for whatever reason. But then again, it took until halfway into last season before she started to get some very good results, including a top 5 finish at Spa. So the potential is there, but it's not to be this weekend, I'm afraid. So that will give a bit of hope to 1 or 2 further down the order, won't it, who have picked up some places. Here is the order. Jake Dennis leading, Antonio Giovinazzi 2nd, Maximilian Gunther 3rd, Charles Leclerc in 4th, Alexander Albon in 5th place, Marcus Pommer 6th, Arjun Maini 7th, Lance Stroll in 8th, Alessio Lorandi is 9th, Felix Rosenqvist hasn't really gained much, he's in 10th place, Michele Beretta, who was a retirement in the second race yesterday, 11th, George Russell, the BRDC Formula 4 champion and a race winner at Silverstone this year. In this championship is 12th. Sam McLeod, who picked up his first points of the season yesterday, is 13th. The Brazilian Sergio Seta Camara is 14th. Mikkel Jensen is 15th. And Santino Ferrucci, the American driver, in 16th place. Santino, one of the teammates to Kangling for Peter Muka's team, Muka Motorsport, the Berlin-based squad, sponsored by the KFZ Tyler 24 company. So there's Jake Dennis leading them round. That mini roundabout there in the middle of the chicane looked quite flat on the TV screens. I looked around the track earlier on. It is actually fairly high curb, that, but they thud the cars over it. It's the quickest way through there. But there's always this concern as to whether you're going to do damage to the suspension of the car, because you have to be quick. To be quick, you have to throw it over the curbs. It's the only way through. So Marshall's doing a great job of clearing the scene of the incident here. Jake Dennis, a triple pole sitter here this weekend, repeating the feat of Esteban Ocon, last year's championship winner. He got 3 poles here last year, but he was only able to win the first race. Race 2 went to Tom Blomqvist, and race 3, the final race of the weekend, which is always the one that gives you the title of the Pau Grand Prix winner, went to Felix Rosenqvist from 2nd on the grid. So that 1 minute 10.629, fantastic lap from Jake Dennis yesterday. Really got his head down for a few laps, but every time Jake built up an advantage, the safety car came out. And he was saying to me afterwards, the engineers are always on the radio to him saying, look after the car, look after the tyres, because he almost know that it doesn't matter if you get a huge lead, there's probably going to be a safety car, and they'll probably be back on your tail anyway. So the idea is to get a 2-3 second gap, so you've got a bit of room for error, and then try and maintain that advantage. But when he was pulling away, he got held up by a back mark by Dorian Bacalacci, who'd had some issues with the engine in the previous race, and had a visit to the pits in race 2. And once he got past him, he just got his head down and put in this tremendous lap, which is the new Formula 3 lap record, 1 minute 10.629 seconds around this 2.7 kilometre long circuit. The course record here is a bit quicker than that, 1 minute 8.6, set all the way back in 1992 by Andrew Montonini, who was racing the Formula 3000 car. So backing them right up now as they run downhill here. Say it looks, you can tell it's downhill, but it doesn't look that steeply downhill, but it is a real narrow, twisty, steep downhill section through the chicane, and he's flooring it now, ready for the restart. Jake Dennis is well practiced at this. He's had plenty of opportunities to practice his restarts this weekend, and he's absolutely done that perfectly once again. So Jake Dennis, 4th of the championship, but only a few points now behind Felix Rosenqvist. Could move up to 3rd in the points quite easily here in this race if it all goes according to plan. He leads them away a little bit behind. That's Arjun Maini going alongside there, the number 25 Prema Power Team car of Lance Stroll. Stroll was trying to get past Maini. Maini was having none of it and held the inside line. So up to Bon Oscar they come with no change inside the top 5-6 positions here. Green flags waving. It's only in the first lap that you're not allowed to pass up at this point. And here's a replay. Stroll, brave effort to try and come around the outside from the Canadian, but Maini was determined to hold his position here and just about avoiding the barriers there. Was the Canadian, and that's one of the American drivers, Gustavo Meneses, out. So Jagonia, I am with Carlin driver Gustavo Meneses, who's had a bit of a difficult weekend so far. He is out. They're already seeing to that, so it might not bring about another safety car, hopefully. And we can have some racing speed here. Look at the way they whip down the hill here through this sequence of S-bends. Absolutely fantastic. Basically past people's back gardens from that run out from Foch. 3rd gear all the way down through the S sections, down to 1st again. And then across the line they come. Very, very quick lap here, no time to think. Speaking to Santino Ferrucci last night, he said not just the speed of these cars, 270 kilometres an hour, 0 to 60, 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in less than 3 seconds. It's the way they brake, he said, and it's like being strapped into a roller coaster. And when you hit the brakes, you're forced into the seat belts. And Santino is one of the smaller drivers in stature, and he's actually lifting out of the seat, such is the force of the braking. And tears come out of your eyes, forced out of your eyes, as we see Lance Stroll trying another move here up the inside on his teammate Felix Rosenqvist. I think it was him trying to defend the position rather than attacking it, and this time he's on the inside, and this time he gets his nose in front. So Lance Stroll fending off Felix Rosenqvist there. V8, look at this. That was, I think Felix had actually got past him on the run into the turn, and then Lance Stroll from a fair way back said, you've got past me, but I've still got the inside line, I'm taking the place back. You imagine the forces involved in this. Santino saying, you've come out of qualifying and it looks like you've been crying because all the tears have been forced out of your eyes. Incredible fitness required from these drivers. Top 2 starting to break away. Same problem as it was yesterday for Leclerc. He's stuck behind Gunther, and here side by side action just behind for the next pair. Alex Albon Coming alongside here, the number 34 Marcus Pommer, but Pommer has got his nose in front, and that is a great move from the German driver. Alexander Albon was ahead at the start of the lap, but Pommer got a better run and then was brave around the outside on the brakes. So the German driver has got much more experience of these types of cars, albeit with different tyres on in German Formula 3. And a very good move there to get 5th place, looking for his best results of the weekend so far, and more good points scored. Fastest first sector of the entire race so far has just gone to the race leader, Jake Dennis, putting in a flyer. He's getting his head down here. He was waxing lyrical about how well balanced, how well handling the car was yesterday. And certainly by far the 3 quickest drivers this weekend in the dry seem to have been Dennis, Giovinazzi and Leclerc. Leclerc's problem has been he hasn't got off the line very well so far. He said in the press conference at the end of race 2 yesterday, I need to work on my starts, because he spent a long time staring at the gearbox of Maximilian Gunther yesterday before he was finally able to get through. He had a bad start in race 1 when he was second on the grid, which allowed Giovinazzi to get past him and into second place before they got to the first corner. Here is Charles Leclerc, number 7, hunting down Maximilian Gunther once again, sick to the sight of the back of that Luca Motorsport car, no doubt. Charles Leclerc, 5 points deficit to Antonio Giovinazzi in the championship standings. Antonio has got 139 points, 134 for Leclerc. Felix Rosenqvist, former runner-up in the championship, but a disappointing season last year for him, only in 8th place. He comes back for a 4th crack at the European title. He's 3rd on 102 points, having only picked up a handful of points so far this weekend after struggling in qualifying to get any clear track space. And Jake Dennis is 4th in the standings on 96 points. And at the start of the weekend on 46 points. So he's already his best ever weekend in Formula 3. What is his 2nd season in the championship? No longer a rookie. And no longer is he not a race winner at this level. Jake Dennis having won titles in the Intersteps Championship, the Junior Single Seater Championship in the UK, and then in the Formula Renault Northern European Championship. 3 seasons ago he was a champion in that as well. Charles Leclerc, runner-up in the Formula Renault Alps Championship last year, first time for him in Formula 3. It doesn't look like it. He looks like he's been here for a lifetime. He has settled straight into this championship, and in all rounds so far he has been very, very competitive. Charles Leclerc, only in the first race of the season did he fail to finish on the podium, and that was after contact, after a good qualifying performance, contact with George Russell at the start of the race, which forced him into the pits, both of them to the back of the grid. Replay of a big lock-up there from the number 25 car of Lance Stroll, which has had its fair share of moments in this race so far. Lance is in the points once again, looking pretty strong in 9th position. So Jake Dennis leads the way. He's got the fastest lap of the race now, not quite as quick as yesterday, but not very far away. 1 minute 10.743 seconds. Other messages coming up on the screen. Car 34 under investigation and has to report to the stewards at the end of the race. That's Marcus Pommer, who currently resides in 5th position. We're looking there at the battle for 3rd place. Maximilian Gunther, who has been a former German and Bavarian karting champion, and 2 seasons in the ADAC, the German Formula Masters single-seater series, in which he was 3 times a runner-up. He was a runner-up in the Formula BMW Talent Cup back in 2011 as well. So he's got a strong pedigree. Hasn't won a championship title yet, but he's had a good season so far. Frustration in the last couple of rounds, as I say, just about missing out on podiums. His pace looks good here. Certainly you would say that he was probably holding up Charles Leclerc for the race yesterday, but his pace looks good here, and he's dropped back a little bit from Giovinazzi in 2nd place, but not by that much. Flat out in 5th gear then through his left-hander. This next right-hander, look at that corner. That, apparently, you don't brake for, and it looks even tighter when you stand right by the track side. So it's 5th gear, and they just very slightly lift. It's super tight. You cannot see past the corner. You can't see through the corner at all. It's an almost blind entry, and it requires a huge amount of confidence to be able to get through there without touching the brakes. If I was in the car, I'd be slamming in the brakes and dropping down to 2nd gear. It looks very tight indeed, but hugely impressive stuff from these drivers, knowing that if you get it ever so slightly wrong, you are in the barriers at seriously high speeds. And of course, these Formula 3 cars are very strongly built to FIA standards. Nonetheless, you don't want to do it. Alex Albon still running in 6th place. He's had a good weekend so far. He could have had a better result yesterday afternoon. He finished 7th in the end, but he was 5th for much of the race. And then towards the end of the race, he was telling me yesterday, he had a sensor problem with the gear selector, so the car just kept changing up on its own for the last 6 or 7 minutes of the race. At one point, he got stuck in 3rd gear behind the last of the safety cars, and then at one point, he got stuck in 6th gear when he was going down towards the hairpin, which is supposed to take in 1st gear. So that, he said, was a little bit hairy. So a bit frustrating that he dropped a couple of places late on, Alex Albon. But that said, if he'd had that problem earlier on in the race, it probably wouldn't have got him any points at all. So at least it happened late on, and at least he was still able to pick up points. And a strong 7th place finish. He's the 2nd best placed rookie driver in terms of the separate rookie standings, behind Charles Leclerc. And Alex up to 6th place in the overall championship this weekend. So doing very, very well indeed. Now we're going to get a replay here of a move, and that comes from Dorian Boccolacci, who won a couple of times here at Po last year in Formula 4. A move up the inside of the Double R racing machine there, but he hadn't quite sorted the move out on the way out of the corner. It's a brave attempt though, and here's Charles Leclerc now really starting to put the cosh under Max Gunther here, and Max Gunther will have one eye on the mirrors at all times. There are not too many places to get past here, but Charles Leclerc is going to try and do what he did yesterday and just put him off his stride and force him into a mistake. When Gunther ran wide yesterday, that Charles was able to get past, and he knows he's as quick as Giovinazzi, maybe even as quick as Dennis. That said, Jake has just set the fastest first sector of the race, so he's on for another flying lap here. His best lap has got even quicker now, so 1 minute 10.639 seconds. So that's a very, very quick lap. It's only 100th slower than he managed yesterday, so he's very close to his lap record, which he's having a go at. There's Alessio Lorandi in the blue and yellow number 8 Van Amersfoort car, powered by VW. And Lorandi is in and around the points. I think he's got past, Arjun Miney now. So Arjun Miney has dropped back. Lance Stroll is in the mix as well, just behind them. And these are all in the points, all inside the top 10. So Lorandi with a daredevil move there. Well, karting type move that, wasn't it? The former world junior karting champion. Just flinging it around the outside, locking up the brakes and passing Arjun Miney, last year's runner-up in the BRDC Formula 4 Championship, which he raced in Britain. So Lorandi up to 7th place now. Arjun Miney's dropped a couple of positions in the last few laps. He's down to 8th position. And Lance Stroll has had the best of the last couple of laps. He's now up into 5th place. So Lance having his best run of the weekend so far and looking for his best result of the season to date. So the order is Jake Dennis leads by 1.1 seconds. A further 3 seconds, Antonio Giovinazzi is 2nd. A further 3 seconds behind in 3rd place, Max Gunther and Charles Leclerc. It's the signature car into the pits, I'm afraid, of number 21, Alex Albon, with a problem. I wonder if that is related to what happened yesterday with his gear selector issue. Had a couple of niggles this weekend. Alex said that gear selector issues happened before, and there's this engine problem which has caused Dorian Boccolacci to change his engine or part of his engine, which means he gets a 10-place grid penalty for 3 races. So for the race yesterday and this race and the first race at Monza. So what a shame for Alex Albon. There in the pits after a super weekend. He's been in the points more often than not this season. 4th place at Silverstone and a couple of 6th there. 5th and 7th in the 2 races yesterday. In the points in a couple of races at Hockenheim, but he will not score any points today. So the driver's 6th in the championship, out of the running. And that was what partially helped Lance Stroll to move up to 5th place. So Jake Dennis leads, Giovinazzi 2nd, Gunther in 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Stroll 5th, Lorandi 6th, looking for his best result. Miney, his teammate, is 7th. Rosenquist is up to 8th, last year's winner. Beretta is 9th and looking for some points after a frustrating Saturday afternoon here. And George Russell is into the points in 10th place, another of the rookies, and one of the 5 different race winners that we've had in the championship so far this season. In fact, coming into this weekend, or into this race at least, the top 5 in the championship had all won at least 1 race. So Giovinazzi, 1 race win, which came at Hockenheim, a win at Silverstone and a win at Hockenheim to make it 2 for the season for Leclerc. Rosenquist had a win at each event as well. And Jake Dennis won both races yesterday, and George Russell was a winner at Silverstone. So Leclerc sort of spends 1 lap really pressurising Maximilian Gunther. Oh dear, and Max's teammate has gone off there. That is Michele Beretta. What a shame. He just about got himself in a good position for points here. He was up into the top 10 and he's nosed it into the wall. Now, whether that's him or somebody that's helped him along the way, we'll have to wait and find out. We're going to get a replay. No, this is the aftermath of it, and it shows how close the other cars come to clipping him, because it's such a narrow circuit anyway. If somebody's blocking you, and this caused the red flag yesterday actually. Michele gets away from the car, which is sensible, but there was an accident yesterday, and that then triggered people to slam on the brakes to try and squeeze through a gap, which caused a huge pile-up on the way into the hairpin. So double wave yellows for that part of the course. There is Jake Dennis. He's now extending his advantage all the time, it seems, over Giovinazzi, or is he? Does that gap come down a little bit? Giovinazzi's shadowing him, isn't he? Those two well cleared out of the battle for third place between Gunther and Leclerc. Trying to make it 9 podiums out of 9 then. Here's Antonio Giovinazzi, who's now in his third season in the championship. And he's one of the most experienced drivers out there. Felix Rosenqvist, this is his 92nd start. This is the 72nd start in the championship for Antonio Giovinazzi. He's only had 3 race wins, 2 last season, towards the end of last year, and 1, as I say, here at the start of this season. And that's Albon still stuck there, I'm afraid. Felix Rosenqvist has had the most career wins in Formula 3. He's had 17. All the other drivers put together have only had 8. As we see, a great move there at the inside from number 24, Brendan Mazzano. That was a tight squeeze, but he managed to get through. And not for any points, I'm afraid, but a good move nonetheless. Alex Albon going back out, but it's very unlikely he's going to pick up any points. But he might as well drive around, and you never know, do you? There's a big pile up and some others drop out. He's going to go back out, at least to test the car, knowing that the next event's only a couple of weeks away. Running over the curbs there. Maximilian Gunther doing a good job here. I'd say he's under less pressure than he was yesterday, when he had Charles Leclerc really breathing down his neck for about 20 laps or so before eventually relenting. He'll be so determined to get on the podium after what's happened to him in recent times. Has been picking up good points still, and he's in 7th place in the championship. He's had 2 4th places, a couple of other top 5 finishes as well. And Max Gunther has become one of the best qualifiers so far this season as well. In the last 5 or 6 races, he's been 3rd on the grid. In fact, the last 6 races, he started 3rd on the grid. So Max's qualifying performances have been very exceptional this year. Charles Leclerc didn't have a bad start, but he just wasn't able to gain anything. It's a real steep run downhill now as they come out of the right-hander at Park Beaumont, down through that very quick left flick through Foch, down through the 3rd gear S's, down to the 1st gear hairpin, back out of there then. Still downhill, but not quite so steeply, on the run down towards the chicane at the end of the lap, and starting a fresh lap. Gap stays at just over a second between our top 2, 1.1 seconds. A little bit quicker on the last lap was Antonio Giovinazzi. A 1:11.0 for our race leader, a 1:10.8 for Giovinazzi. So the gap's just crept down a little bit. Gunther is doing 1:11.3s. Leclerc therefore has to do the same because he can't find a way through. Lance Stroll is very quick, 1:10.9. He's on his own in 5th place, and he's the 2nd quickest driver out there at the moment, second only on that lap to Giovinazzi. So Lance Stroll doing a good job here. In addition to winning the Italian Formula 4 Championship, he also won the Toyota Racing Series down in New Zealand over the winter, which a number of other drivers that are in this championship contested. Look at those curbs. You can see, you get a view there of just how much it drops downhill, flat out through the left-hander, roller coaster ride then, down to this hairpin, which is taken in 1st gear, full lock on the cars, and then weaving their way down through these S-bends once again into this chicane, over that mini roundabout, just clipping it, and then over the start-finish line, which is the only real straight around the circuit here. So the gap has come down again, 0.7 of a second. Giovinazzi's making a race of this. He's looked this weekend so far like a man who's happy to settle for 2nd and 3rd positions and pick up more championship points, knowing that that's how you win a championship, which comprises 33 races. It's about the consistency as much as it is about the race wins. But in this one, he's really got his head down. He's looked very strong since the last 3-4 rounds of last year. Picked up a couple of wins and several podiums in the last 10 races, the last third of last season. A couple of seasons Formula 3 experience. And in 2013, he raced in the British Formula 3 Championship. Was a winner in that. Finished in the runner-up spot in last year's championship. So he's got a good amount of experience. He's got the Carlin team behind him in this partnership with Giovinazzi. Carlin having taken 9 British Formula 3 titles, including a run, I think it was 6 or 7 years running, they won the British F3 title. Lots of other experience in things like GP2 and GP3 as well. Giovinazzi is the highest ranked driver from last year to return for this season's championship. So he finished 6th in the championship last year. The top 5 have all moved on to other things. So Esteban Ocon, who's here this weekend, has been doing some demonstration laps in a Formula E car. Esteban Ocon was last year's champion, has moved on to GP3 and has already won on his debut in Barcelona. So he's the championship leader in GP3. Antonio Fuoco has joined him in that series. We've got Tom Blomqvist, who was the runner-up in last year's championship. He's now racing in the DTM with BMW. Lucas Auer, the nephew of Gerhard Berger, the Austrian driver, has moved into the DTM as well. He was 4th in last year's championship, and he is now racing with Mercedes in the DTM. And in 3rd place in last year's championship was, of course, Max Verstappen, who is now a Formula 1 driver. So through that incredible right-hand corner at Park Beaumont they go. Now they begin the descent through the final half of the lap. There's single file through here, really. We haven't seen any attempted moves. As Jake Dennis said to me yesterday, once you get past turn 4 on the last lap of the race, you kind of know you're home and dry, because there's not really anywhere else for people to get past in the second half of the lap. It is single file. It's about setting it up for perhaps a run into the first turn at Le Gare, named so because the railway station, the town railway station, is just behind the corner. The car park this weekend being used as part of the paddock for this and the various other support races like Formula 4 and Formula Renault. Even got Twigos and Caterhams racing here this weekend. Under that bridge we go. As I say, spectators on top of that bridge watching them whip underneath. Fantastic sight. Grandstands all around for the spectators, of which last year there were around about 25 to 30,000 enjoying this fantastic spectacle. And you can get so close to the circuit, so close to these cars flying past. It really is a sight to behold. Like with any street race, realistically you're never going to get as much overtaking as you will on a purpose-built racetrack, but it's the spectacle of watching these cars drive through these roads. And the roads, of course, are just normal roads, so they're pretty heavily cambered, which is another factor that you have to consider. Alex Albon said to me yesterday that all the way around, really, it's a real cambered circuit, so the centre of the road is peaked, and for drainage purposes it rolls off to either side. And if you get the wrong side of one of those bumps, it can really unsettle the car. Wrong side of the camber, wrong side of the peak, you can lift wheels in the air. But equally, if you get yourself in the groove, you can really find huge amounts of grip through some of the corners, and that is why they have to turn in early and take quite a tight line through the first corner at Le Gare. So you can see there that Giovinazzi, for a number of laps now, probably about 5 or 6 laps, has been just slowly chipping away at Jake Dennis's race lead, which was about 1.2 seconds 5 or 6 minutes ago. It is now, as you can see, down to 0.2 seconds. And Jake Dennis, for the first time all weekend really, apart from when we've had safety cars, has got somebody right behind him. And that somebody is the championship leader. And Jake Dennis, no doubt this weekend, with a mind set on the championship himself. Giovinazzi, there's no doubt about it, is the quicker driver at this stage of the race. But we are into, what, the final quarter of the race also now. Jake Dennis might start to feel a little bit of pressure. And as he said yesterday, he feels he's in the Mercedes-powered car. Last year he raced with the VW engine for the Carlin team, so he's experienced both of the main engine manufacturers that are in this championship. And he reckons that the VW-powered car behind him has got a little bit more straight-line speed. He reckons it was a couple of tenths quicker in the first race in the straight line than he was down the straights. So he did say, if Giovinazzi ever gets right behind me, I'm going to have to defend into some of the corners, particularly into turn 1. So the Mercedes-powered Prema car in the lead of the race. The Briton on board, looking for his 3rd win of the weekend. Having taken his maiden win 24 hours ago in the championship. Giovinazzi shadowing him, and right with him now, though, at this stage of the race. They are about 5 seconds clear of this battle for 3rd, which still has Maximilian Gunther seeking his first Formula 3 podium, but only half a second to his rear is Charles Leclerc. Lance Stroll is in 5th place, still about 5 seconds behind that battle for 3rd. Alessio Lorandi is in 6th position, looking for his best result of the season so far. Arjun Maini, who was in the points yesterday, in another strong 7th place here. Felix Rosenqvist is in 8th. Damage limitation for him this weekend. And he's one that won't mind Jake Dennis winning. If you've got to choose somebody else to win that was up there in the championship, he'd rather Jake Dennis was taking maximum points than either of the top 2 in the points, being Giovinazzi and Leclerc. Look how close Giovinazzi is here, though, to Jake Dennis, who's really having to defend here, just like he said he would. On the way into the first corner at Lagar, almost alongside his rear wheels then, with Antonio Giovinazzi. So the Italian is going for it. Of course, this is a normal point-scoring round, but it is also the race with which you get the title of Po GP winner to add your name to that list of legends that have won here before. So it's a very prestigious race. And Giovinazzi, it looks like, fancies a bit of it, and he's really putting the pressure on now as they come out of the corner and climb up the hill. He tries to look at the inside here, the Italian. He's pulled off some good moves in recent races. I think back to Hockenheim, the move around the outside of Felix Rosenqvist to get the race lead, which was mightily impressive. So he's not scared of having a go, is the Italian. But Jake Dennis has the circuit on his side because it is always difficult to attack and find a way through here, but he runs wide and through he goes. Is there a problem for Jake Dennis? He's slowed up, he's been struggling for the last couple of laps, hasn't he, for pace? And Giovinazzi goes through at a point of the circuit with which you wouldn't think he'd be able to do it, and Jake Dennis is falling back. Has he got a problem? I'm sure he has, because he's lost a lot of time. What disaster for Jake Dennis. On course almost for the perfect weekend, 4 minutes away from the flag, and it doesn't look like he's going to make it a hat-trick. Question is now, can he hang on to second? Can he hang on to a podium? Because we have just got a few laps to go before the 35 minutes are up. So Giovinazzi getting through there, but I am sure that there is a problem with that car for Jake Dennis, because he's dropped right off the boiler. 1 minute 16 last time around. That is 4 or 5 seconds off the pace. Of course, Giovinazzi's lap time was slow as well, and yeah, he's letting them through. He can't do anything about it, so he's off the podium, I'm afraid, now. Into second place goes Max Gunther, into third, on for another podium finish. He's 8th on the trot is Charles Leclerc, and in 4th place here is Jake Dennis. Now, he said in the press conference at the end of race 1, which he won comfortably, that he'd had some issue with the car, but he wouldn't say what it was to the waiting press, and you just wonder if it's that or, well, it doesn't matter really what it is. It is the fact that it's cost him a race win here at this most famous course. And if you were having to have a problem in one of the races this weekend, this is the one you didn't want to have it in, the Po GP, the 74th running of it. And what disaster for him. Nothing he could do about it, though. The car has a problem. They're normally so reliable, Prema Power Team cars. You hardly ever see them with problems. Such a well-prepared team. They've won the Drivers' and the Teams Championship the last 2 years running. But that car is limping along now, and it's lost 4-5 seconds a lap. So Giovinazzi, Gunther and Leclerc, the top 3. Dennis 4th, Lance Stroll coming up to him, though, in 5th place. And it could be that Jake Dennis is going to slip even further down the order in the remaining few laps of this race. Stroll is 5th, Lorandi is 6th, Miney 7th, Rosenqvist 8th, Russell is 9th. And Sam McLeod's into the points now again in 10th position. Matt Solomon having one of his best runs as well, not in the top 10 yet, but Hong Kong-based driver in 14th place. Jake Dennis is about to lose another position, and it's going to be to Lance Stroll, and there's no point trying to over-defend when your car is that much slower. It's only going to cause trouble. This is the moment then when Lance Stroll, I think, took another position away from Jake Dennis. Not yet. No, Jake was able to hold it through the corner, but Lance was coming back at him as the picture cut away. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they'd switched around next time we see them cross the line. So Giovinazzi looking for his 2nd win of the season to extend his championship lead. He'll pick up 25 points. His nearest rival in the championship is Leclerc, who is on for 3rd and 18 points. So the gap will more than double from 5 points to 12 between the top 2. There's a queue now formed up behind Jake Dennis. Somehow, he's still fending off Lance Stroll here. But the Canadian, he's desperate to come past because he, in turn, is being caught here by Alessio Lorandi and by Arjun Miney. So this is 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and not far behind them in 8th place there. In the background is Felix Rosenqvist, last year's Po GP winner, hugging the inside line here, but he can't do anything about it, I'm afraid. Jake Dennis loses another place. He's just got no power, and it's almost stopping now. A real problem for him. He will be cursing that car, and he'll be lucky to finish in the points now, I'm afraid. What heartbreak. In most sports, it's usually in your control. In motorsport, there are 1,001 things that can go wrong, and it doesn't matter what you do as a driver, what you do as a team to prepare. Things mechanically, technically can go wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it. So a real shame here. Still been a super weekend for him, but it's going to be a bittersweet weekend now for him, for Jake Dennis. Won both the races yesterday and led the vast majority of this race. 3 pole positions, and he has not put a wheel wrong this weekend. So it's a sad way to end his visit to France. But he is now a race winner, and he now have the confidence to take that forward for the rest of the championship and battle for the prize of Formula 3 European Champion 2015. So behind him now is George Russell in 9th place, down to 8th position, just trying to pick up a few points here if he can, is Jake Dennis. We're on the last lap of the race because the clock has ticked down to 0. And there is our race leader, Antonio Giovinazzi, just in a league of his own now. Still with the best lap of the race, 1 minute 10.636 is Jake Dennis. And it'll be small reward this, but he has got the lap record as well from yesterday. Final lap of the race then for Antonio Giovinazzi, the likeable Italian. He's up there. Oh gosh, the car is just blocking everybody now. It's just cutting out or just dropping power. And it almost stops coming out of the corner. He's getting a nudge there with Jake Dennis. He's trying to get the thing out of the corner. It keeps stopping, so they're all queued up behind him. But here is the winner of the 74th Po GP, and it is an Italian. It is the championship leader. It is a delighted Antonio Giovinazzi that wins the race here for Giovinazzi. I am with Carlin. What a driver he is. Maybe a little bit fortunate there, you'd have to say. And look at this contact here. That was number 36, Sam McLeod, just getting, well, hitting the wheels of Jake Dennis, but through nobody's fault, really. It's the fact that Jake's car is being very unpredictable. And what a huge shame for him. The rest of the finishers crossed through. Did Jake finish in the points? No, he didn't. So Santino Ferrucci gets into the top 10. Jake Dennis out of the points to add insult to injury. Antonio Giovinazzi, the winner. He was there when it mattered. He got himself in 2nd place. In the end, he had to rely on a problem for Jake Dennis. But you can't take anything away from him. He is the winner of the 74th Po GP. The Italian winning for Giovinazzi. I am with Carlin by 1.9 seconds in the end. 2nd place on the podium at last for Maximilian Gunther for the KFZ Tyler 24 Muka Motorsport team. And a sigh of relief all round for that. And you have to say, it's kind of deserved after the bad luck that he's had recently. 3rd place to Charles Leclerc, continuing his excellent rookie season. He'll be on the podium once again. Lance Stroll with his best result of the year so far in 4th place. Arjun Maini, 4th yesterday, 5th today. Great weekend for him, the Indian driver, also for Van Amersfoort Racing. Felix Rosenquist in 6th place. Given his grid positions this weekend, a 5th and a 6th, I think he'll be relatively satisfied with in terms of damage limitation. Alessio Lorandi comes home in 7th place. Great run for him as well. So that's all 3 of the Van Amersfoort cars in their 40th year of racing the Dutch team. All of them in the points. George Russell in the points once again, the Silverstone winner in 8th place. In 9th place, Mikkel Jensen had a lot of progress there from the midfield to get into 9th. In 10th place, Santino Ferrucci picks up points as well to add to the points he got at Silverstone, and the points he picked up for 6th place in the 2nd race at Hockenheim. So good effort that by Santino, whose weekend started difficult circumstances when he was sort of squeezed into the barriers in race 1. But he's got better and better. He was 11th yesterday and he's in the points today. In terms of the top 3 rookies, they were 2nd, 3rd and 4th overall. So Maximilian Gunther, as well as taking 2nd place, is the winner of the rookies there, ahead of Charles Leclerc and Lance Stroll. And the 3 of them will be on the podium for the rookie podium as well, which we'll look forward to after the main podium. You're going to see a very exuberant Italian, I think, jumping out of the car in a minute. Our race winner. His teammates didn't fare quite so well. Number 4 there, Gustavo Meneses, out of the race early on. Sergio Setico.